Well, damn. The first one of these VR videos did pretty well, so maybe this is my format for now. So there's a whole ass Game Grumps world in VR chat, apparently. That's based on, like, I think it's now their old HQ. I don't think they actually work in this building anymore. I think they got kicked out. But it's like a whole ass customized place that they used to work in, which was always kind of wild. You used to kind of fantasize about doing something like this. The idea of, like, run a business, hire your friends from all your fame on the internet. Just because I'm like, I like to collaborate with my friends, and my audience often likes me collaborating with my friends. But all my friends are in the rest of capitalism, where they have day jobs and hourly wage and shit and endlessly shifting schedules. So I would have to, like, make a lot of money to be able to hire them, because they'd have to be making enough money that my content pays my bills and then also a whole other person's bills, which is insane to me. Like, I've been making YouTube videos since 2011, and I went full-time in 2016. So I've now been a full-time YouTuber for a decade, and there's a lot of pitfalls and a lot of upsides to that. I do not miss my old jobs, but there's a lot of anxieties and stresses tied to whether or not you can even make a living like this in this weird, untested space. There's a lot of stresses that come from having an audience all the time that you have to perform for, and that you're trying to manage on some level. Like, I need these people to like me enough to pay me, so I'm fed by that and the algorithm and some combination of, like, crowd pleasing and kind of pandering, but also trying to be myself while also trying to maintain boundaries with my audience and try to figure out how not to, like, violate any of these messes and so on, while also trying not to be exploitative, because so many people that do the kind of job I do really mind this, like, parasocial interaction with people, where they really want them to like them so much so that they feed into relationships in a dangerous way that makes people feel like they know you when they don't know you. And it's like, it's hard to push back on that. Parasociality is so strong that, like, when somebody thinks they know you, if you just agree with them on some level or just don't challenge it, you make a bunch of money off of somebody giving you money all the time, based on this kind of vibe. But if you do push back on them, then it always goes poorly. It's very hard to explain the asymmetry going on and where they are. And you, as the content creator, are way more experienced with that kind of shit happening all the time than they are. And you just, like, it goes badly every single time. So it's stressful. It's stressful and weird. I've managed to, like, eke out this, like, mid-level thing where I'm just like, hey guys, if you like my content, you can give me money. And sometimes you get a perk like early content or some bonus content, but always trying to maintain the vibe of you don't know me. And so I've managed to hit this weird mid-level of YouTuber that people don't realize exists necessarily, which is that you're a YouTuber that makes the kind of money that, like, a lot of hourly wage people kind of make, where, like, you keep making enough to not have to actually quit your job and be like, oh no, I should go back to my other stuff, YouTube's not working. But I am making little enough that, like, the entire idea of, like, oh yeah, pay for artists for all your thumbnails, or get a bunch of collaborators that you pay to be in your videos, is, like, completely alien, because there's such a gulf between, like, where I am and this behind me. And then all this stuff and the fucking Logan Paul McMansion nonsense, where people just have so much money that they don't even make sense anymore as people and are illegible human beings. And they also don't understand what normal people are like. So they just, all their videos are them saying insane shit all the time. It's such a spectrum. But anyway, what brings us here today is that Arin Hanson, the creator of Game Grumps, or one of the two co-founders of Game Grumps and the long-standing dude from Game Grumps, but also before that, Ego Raptor, one of the architects, not architects, it's a weird word to use, one of the pioneers of, like, several genres of media, like, not because he created any of them, because he was there during a bunch of the early waves of important stuff happening on YouTube and on Newgrounds and on older platforms, where there was a lot of people around him doing similar stuff, but, like, he was there at the beginning doing each of these things in each of these phases, and has been important at each different step. And the two that people always talk about is animation, which is Newgrounds, the stuff, the Resident Evil awesome, Metal Gear awesome, and so on, like, relatively lo-fi spoof animations that were done in Flash. And then, of course, this stuff, Game Grumps, the sort of like daily job that he eventually set up of just coming in and talking over video games the way that I do on my other channel and doing that whole vibe. I've been doing it for longer than he has, which is terrifying. But there's an in-between phase that's super interesting and that we're going to be getting into here, because this is also where he has maybe the biggest claim to fame for being a pioneer in a genre, and it's actually the one that he gets the least credit for. He was also like, he didn't like invent Let's Plays, but he was in on the wave relatively early. Because like I remember, because I was in it before he was, and even then I was like, what if we recorded playing video games? That'd be crazy, right? For the internet? And he's like, oh, people are already doing that? There's a name for it? I didn't even know that when I started doing it. Like, it was that early. It was so not a institution yet. But he made a post somewhere. I assume it's like some kind of like blue post on Twitter or something like that, because if it's like a big lengthy thing in response to a thing, but I saw it on Reddit being quoted and so on. And it's the usual thing, which is that people took his Sequelitis series and they're being mad about a moment in it, because that's what happens with those videos all the time nowadays. And then he just wrote a really long, thoughtful sort of response, just sort of looking back on this thing that he made 12 years ago. But to roll it back a little bit, Sequelitis is a series of hybrid review Flash animated game critique / game design breakdown videos that happened from like 2011 to 2014, and they were really insightful and interesting videos at the time, but they're also in a very specific era of video game coverage on the internet, because this was 2011. I was 21. I'm 36 soon. It's a different fucking period of time. So it's like a historical context to this stuff. And so this is coming fresh off of like an era where people were watching like the Angry Video Game Nerd, the Nostalgia Critic, the Angry Joe Show, people that had angry in their names. And Egoraptor himself was coming from having made a bunch of little crass, shouty video game parodies where swearing would happen and gore surprises and just like little 90-second animations where the punchline was something about the gameplay mechanics or the universe of that setting, but the parody was often like, what if we were crass or violent and so on. And that's often the punchline to the stuff. I frankly don't even remember half of these things besides watching the Awesome Center Redux video way too many times, which is the one with the zombie cancer, which is like the fucking quotes are built in my brain. And part of the reason why I moved on from that era of his videos was because he moved on to this interesting, thoughtful stuff here. And this was happening in a very specific time. Where like he's coming from this crass stuff and he's surrounded by all this crass stuff. So these videos are full of crass commentary, a lot of like shouting and rudeness and so on. And unfortunately, the R slur a few times because it was 2011 to 2014 and that had not been reassessed in quite the way that it has at this point now. And that's the bummer of watching those videos right now. But otherwise, they hold up surprisingly well. To me, and I've really been trying to reconcile how weird that is, because like I can still watch the Sequelitis videos over and over again in a really specific way that I put on a shelf with like special video essays. Like it's like certain eras of like Lindsay Ellis and a bunch of H-Bomber Guy and Shammy. And then more recently, Door Monster has actually been doing really good this very specific genre of like quick, dense video essays where they're insightful and they're interesting, but they have an energy to them and a delivery to them. And like you can tell that they put work revising the thing that they're making over and over again and getting on to a certain level where it was like actually well paced and entertaining. And the thing about this stuff is that it predates like all of this stuff. We didn't have the term video essay to describe what Arin Hanson was doing at the time, but it was starting. Like it might have even been used to describe every frame of painting at the time, because 2014 is such a specific era where we had Arin Hanson doing Sequelitis. We had Feminist Frequency making tropes versus women in video games. Did not go over well for stupid reasons. Lindsay Ellis was transitioning from nostalgia chick to Lindsay Ellis, where she now is known for making these video essays. Like, I think 2014 might have been around the time where she made the Rent video, which really sucked me into her content, because I saw her as Nostalgia Critic, as Nostalgia Chick. And back then, when I was watching Nostalgia Critic and stuff, I was like, she's the boring one, because she was slower, and I was like 18, so I sucked. But as I grew up and Nostalgia Critic didn't interest me anymore, and I found Lindsay Ellis again, and she was doing her own series, which is like, she did a Transformers The Whole Plate. She did this whole series of things where she, what was it? She would like look at a specific character or trope or like mythological figure or Hillary Clinton and be like, here's how this character is presented throughout all of fiction. Here's like 30 examples of that character being interpreted over and over again, and here's the different ways, the forms that takes, which is way more interesting than what Nostalgia Chick was back in the day. And then she went on to do like the Rent video, and she did all the stuff she's known for now, like the Ballad of Yoko Ono and all of her Nebula exclusive stuff these days. And she's been a juggernaut in the video essay format ever since. I would even put Red Letter Media here, with Red Letter Media made the Plinkett reviews, the infamous like, Star Wars is the most disappointing thing since my son, Phantom Menace review, and the Star Trek reviews and so on. Really specific era where instead of the internet being full of just like, here's a crass 10-minute review where I kind of yell about how a thing sucks or whatever, but we're not really gonna get into it that much, and sometimes there's skits where I do a bad costume about something from the game, and I stupid buttholes, and like, you know, angry video game nerd, like, love it or hate it. It was like, that's kind of what the era was. Instead, the Plinkett reviews by Red Letter Media was like, what if we did a review of the Phantom Menace that was 70 minutes long in like 2012 or something? I don't remember the exact year of the stuff. This is not a carefully researched video. These are once again not video essays. This is me just talking about what I remember, how I remember it, which is often wrong. But like this, I remember living through this era though, because I was so fucking hungry for this content when it was coming out. So like this was an era where I would rewatch the Plinkett reviews of the first two Star Wars prequels over and over again, waiting for the third one to come out. And he kept making slightly different stuff about like Baby's Day Out or whatever. I'm waiting for the third one to come out. I would rewatch the Sequelitis videos about Mega Man and Castlevania over and over again, waiting for some other one to come out one day, because they took years to make some of these things. These are big projects, but it was a genre that was so underrepresented in the exact style and format and like rewatchability and quality that you would just actually rewatch the same ones over and over again. Nowadays, I am subscribed to like 200 video essay channels, and I lose track of them constantly. And every now and then I have to look back and be like, okay, Princess Weeks, Yara Zed, or someone, I need to click on your profile and see how many videos snuck past me since last time. And I'll like binge a single channel's backlog because a pillar of garbage or someone like that's, I need to like go back and like, okay, how many of these snuck past me because I was busy, and there's now a decent video essay twice a week when it used to be a thing that happened like twice a year. It's a very different era of time. And I find this so interesting specifically because we don't talk about Egoraptor in this sense. Like we forget about the fact that around this time was when like, I think this is when like Vlogbrothers was making Crash Course, and like Crash Course was being used in classrooms. And nowadays, a lot of you guys have been watching some of you guys grew up watching Hank and John Green and their other, and whatever other guys they might have, doing their Crash Course videos in your classroom. And it's like YouTube supplementary videos for classes, because their whole goal was to make free education and so on, and try to make that a project. And that thing's still going. I haven't kept up with it because it's just an endless content hose, but like it serves a cool purpose. And like what we forget is that back then there were actually game design courses that would show Arin's Sequelitis videos. Specifically, the Sequelitis video about Mega Man X had such a reach that it was seen as like a genuine game design resource that was actually like here's an actual source to spend time on and internalize this information, because it's really important about how how mechanics are conveyed to a player, often wordlessly, and how your level can actually walk you through this. It was like the trope of like, we're going to break down Mario 1-1, but like actually doing it in like an insightful, rapid fire, entertaining way that actually makes people want to watch it and actually helps convey these on a oftentimes a better level than that kind of stuff. It was just really cool. But nowadays, the format gets to people, and the unfortunate fate of this stuff is that, one, he then made a video about Ocarina of Time, which was not well received because he was now negatively criticizing an unpopular thing instead of negatively, when like really the key to success with this stuff is that you always want to criticize an unpopular thing or praise a popular thing, and then you're uncontroversial and you can say whatever you want. But when you criticize a popular thing, then there's a big backlash that at least there would be back in that time. Nowadays, it's actually much more common to be how YouTube is always about having takes, and really the video essay format. As it has matured, people have largely learned the fact that the genre as a whole is designed to be all about contrarianism on some level. Like, not about just being like, I think the opposite of you on purpose to be a dick or whatever, but more like, if you have an uncontroversial take in that it's either a thing that everyone agrees with or a thing that everyone already understands, then why does the video exist? Why make it? If you're going to sit there and script it out and edit it out, like if you're going to make a video essay, the whole point is to make people think something they don't already think. An essay is an argument. There is a thesis statement that you are arguing in support of. That's what an essay is, and what a lot of things that are now called video essays by people frequently fail to actually achieve. And they're more like, I'm summarizing the plot of a 7-season-long show for 4 hours and joking sometimes, which is actually has more in common with Nostalgia Critic than video essays, but people call them video essays and it pisses me off. But these Sequelitis videos were video essays. They had an argument that they were making, and they were supporting that argument with a combination of specific cited points and entertaining jokes along the way. Like, people really fuck this up, but like from what I've seen, like for example, like Quentin reviews is oftentimes has more in common with Nostalgia Critic as far as being like a summarizing thing, but with jokes maybe or insight or personality. And then Sequelitis, which feels more like Angry Video Game Nerd, actually has more in common with Lindsay Ellis and Every Frame of Painting than it does with Nostalgia Critic and Angry Video Game Nerd. There's this core fundamental difference between these two things, which is the fact that there is a thesis that is being argued, and there's a thing that's structured and argued like an essay, which a shocking amount of things that people think are video essays aren't. I'm really rambling about this point for way too long, and I'm also just taking too long to get to the point overall. But what was interesting about this post that happened is that Arin looked back and was like, he's had to deal with the negative responses to his work for over a decade now, and for a variety of reasons. But he was just kind of looking back nostalgically about, not necessarily nostalgically, but just like looking back, kind of doing a post-mortem on this work that he made that's full of crass jokes, and it criticizes Ocarina of Time a lot, and it overplays his hand here and there, and like is a bit over dramatic about how bad it is and so on, because like that's the format of like, that's why frankly that's why it was a successful video, is because larger emotions are more effective than weak emotions and so on. Like one of the worst things that the worst videos I ever upload as far as performance goes, like on our podcast for example back in the day, I'd be like, this game is good and that game is bad, and it's like, those are not interesting titles and headlines, just like on the face of it. You need to frame it and package it, and you have to have big emotions and sell it on the thing, otherwise the whole thing's kind of a waste of time. But he's looking back and he's like, yeah, the whole thing rubbed people wrong, and I've heard about how it rubbed people wrong for a decade now, and I do regret that, is his overall vibe in the post. Like he's looking back on his body of work and how it doesn't always work for people and how people react to it negatively, and he wishes that he didn't kind of have the legacy that he has. And some of it's his fault, some of it's not totally his fault, some of it's just a weird thing where he's been around long enough that the interpretations of how people think his tone even works keeps shifting. And it's also very hard for me to judge because I find this super compelling is that like I have been working in this space this whole time. Not as long as he has, if you count the Newgrounds stuff, but like I've been making YouTube videos since 2011. So I'm just so familiar with the idea that like we're a heightened person. I'm kind of shouting in a room alone right now, shirtless, because I had to take my shirt off because the full body tracking thing on my belt will, I'm just thrusting at the camera now. The full body tracking thing will get blocked by a shirt. So I took my shirt off because I was like, I don't feel like tucking it in. So I'm just like standing alone, shirtless in a room, waving my hands around like a jackass because I'm a funny cartoon hyena right now. And that changes you. Even when you're not specifically doing a character like Borat, you're still you, like you're you, but you're like a heightened you, and you pick which parts of your personalities to heighten, in part based on the feedback of what seems to work and what seems to like resonate with people and what seems to entertain people, and you kind of condition yourself and train that over time, so that when you're on camera or doing anything or even making creative choices in a scripted sense, these kinds of things all come together to make this new version of you, the camera, internet, persona version of you that isn't a specific character you're role-playing as necessarily, although some people do play a character explicitly. So there's plenty of people that are like, they're playing themselves, but that's not them still. Like, that is definitely a different thing. It's so fascinating to watch this stuff play out because, like, I get it, and I've always got it. I've 100% always gotten this stuff the whole time, because I've always known the artifice of all this stuff intuitively before I made stuff, and then I started making stuff and was even more aware of like all the steps that go into making a thing. And so I'm just aware of like the difference in being on camera and being a person. I used to record, I had these really specific memories, for example, of like streaming through or recording through the entirety of the Halo trilogy in Andrew's garage. But he had a handyman come by to work on stuff. And this guy just showed up in the middle of us recording. And like awkwardly, we just kind of had the recording still going and stuff. And I'm like, no, because the moment another person walked in the room, I am no longer performing for the video. I'm just performing in front of this random person who doesn't know what the fuck's happening. And I cannot do commentary. I can't talk. I can't act like this is normal. There's a guy in the room right now. We do genuinely have to stop because there's just a random third person here. And I can't just be like, yeah, I'm a comedy actor up on the stage doing my stand-up routine, and like just blow through it as like somebody walks through to deliver meals to the people at the comedy show or whatever. Like I'm trying to come up with an equivalent of like somebody just walking in that works there. Like, in that social context, they understand the person's on stage and they're doing a thing. But here I'm just sitting on a couch in front of a TV, talking at the TV as like a psycho, and it feels like completely insane immediately. Because immediately I'm snapped back into being person, normal me, being observed by normal people in person who are not on mic with me. Like I can do this whole thing when somebody else is on mic with me, but the moment there's someone else nearby that I think can hear me, I'm kind of fucked. In the early days of living at Marty's house in like 2014 or around here, actually, yeah, the same era, or 2015 when I was like moving out and starting my next job that I would then quit to do YouTube. If I heard voices through my door, I'm like, they're right outside. I would sometimes just pause the game and stop recording and wait for the voices to go away because I'm too aware of the fact that if I can hear them, then they can hear me, and they just hear my voice through the door. And that's weird because now I'm just a weird person in real life and not somebody in the specific YouTube context. Like that's how different the person on camera is than the person in real life, even though we're the same person with, and maybe in like a version of the same opinions, but maybe stated at a different volume level and emotional level and so on. So like I've 100% always got this, that like when Arin Hanson, that's a stupid poopy butthole or whatever the fuck in his Sequelitis videos, that's him doing a bit. And when he's sitting on the couch in the Let's Plays with Danny, and they are or John originally, and they're doing a bit where they just one up each other over and over again, and they iterate over and over again, and they escalate off of each other's energy. I get that that's also like, that's a bit, that's like, if you want to call it that, a character. It's a performance, and it's like they're not lying, but it is like it's like in the magic circle where we know this is for fun and we're fucking around and we're supposed to all agree that this is the magic circle where we're fucking around. And you can say true things in the magic circle, but it is in the magic circle where we all know that this is like play. This isn't fighting. We're not actually fighting. When I argue with Andrew in Factorial playthroughs, that's not fighting because we're in the magic circle. We're doing a stupid bit, and that's how we're bantering, and that's like for the fun thing. But there's been a really weird... what's been really weird about watching Game Grumps for the last, 14 years, because they started in 2012. I started in 2011. Ha! It wasn't good, but I was there first with Andrew. They've been doing this since 2014, and it's gotten so toxic for a wide variety of reasons. It's gotten so weird, and it's like, I've watched documentaries about this shit, and the documentaries are weird too because they get so much stuff wrong, and I know that's wrong because I saw other stuff that contradicts what the documentaries say, and that's weird. That's weird and fucked up that people sit in a room playing video games with their friends, and there's documentaries about them? What do you mean? What kind of bizarre behavior is that in itself? But like, it was smooth sailing for like the first year or so. It was him and JonTron playing video games together, doing Let's Plays, but then, in less than a year, JonTron left the show. He moved back to the East Coast, because they were recording it locally in California, and so he moved back to the East Coast. Goodbye. There was no overt signs of there being any particular drama or anything wrong going on there, but he was gone, and people were curious. And that curiosity is inherently a nightmare because you got these people that are parasocially attached to this group. Like, they've been making animations. There was so many Game Grumps animations in 2011 or 2012 already, and 2013, where people make so many little animations because Arin did a couple of them, and then everyone started doing that too, and they were inspired to do that on a crazy scale. Game Grumps might be the reason why so many Let's Play channels have animations now, where somebody animates the commentary and like visually represents it somewhat literally, and makes a fun little 90-second short. Full perp making animations of my Echo and Ad Astra playthroughs with Stephanie almost certainly exists specifically because Arin Hanson thought to animate a couple bits with JonTron, and then a huge amount of audience members then were like, wait, I can do that. And then now it happens all the time. And now every actual play channel that you watch now, like the tabletop people, they all have animations. That's like half their audience because the animations are so much more popular than the actual show half the time because the reality of the show is watching 5-hour D&D streams. So if they condense it to the little gremlin energy of 90 seconds of animation, then that's how you go. In fact, if you know who I'm talking about, one of the actual play channels that has a lot of animated shorts on YouTube, that animator was a Game Grumps animator originally. They made like 10 Game Grumps animations before they even went on to whatever the fuck their life's been since then and how they got here. It's like, I think their name's like Sucharu, Sonicharu. I'm forgetting. There's also like 3 different ones that I've been seeing lately. They're all blending together. And like, they do a lot of playthroughs and I don't know which ones are which necessarily. Off topic. But yeah, like JonTron left the show. And people were invested because there was like a whole fucking college industry of animators. And I think the animations might have made people more invested in them as personalities because now they're little cartoon characters. They're little comfort people. Arin and Hanson become your little comfort characters. I say Arin and Hanson. Arin and John become your comfort characters, like those two buds. So what does it mean that they stopped being buds? Or at least they stopped working together. Does that mean they stopped being buds? And people couldn't tell. And apparently, now that we know from the background a little bit, they kind of couldn't tell what standing they left on because of like sort of the abruptness of some of it. But this led to I think there was like a bunch of discussions in the subreddit which got somewhat shut down, and now there are eventually 2 separate toxic Game Grumps subreddits. There is Rant Grumps and Conspiracy Grumps. Rant Grumps is a dedicated space for being just vicious at the Game Grumps all the time, just talking mad shit about their gameplay or their commentary or jokes that they just use too much and drive into the ground or anything that annoys you. And frankly, a lot of misogyny. Any woman that shows up on the program oh my God, so many horrific misogynist comments get directed at them all the time. They hate women over there so much, which is what happens every time these platforms happen. I remember when Lindsay joined Achievement Hunter around this era. I remember how it happened every time a woman joined the Gamer Bros on every channel, how the community was furious. Fucking like they stuck through it, and Lindsay stuck around and did a bunch of other stuff, and I think was eventually well liked in Achievement Hunter or whatever. But oh my God, I remember every video that she was in would be 50% dislikes at the beginning. Insane being a gay or a gay person or a woman or any kind of like non-straight boy in the gaming circles of YouTube back then. Insane. But then Conspiracy Grumps was a dedicated subreddit to being parasocial weirdos about the fact that John left the show and trying to solve the mystery of what happened there. Did this person sleep with that guy's wife? Did somebody punch someone? Who knows what happened? Like it was like 50%, let's say 80% fan fiction, basically. People just reading between the lines, but like there was like so much space between the lines that you could just write a fucking essay of made up shit in the middle, and some of that would become canon and believed for ages and so on. It was such a dense period of years, and I think they're still around to this day, but in particular during the early years after John left, they were obsessive over them for ages, and they hated Ross and Danny for replacing John because there was new people that came in to replace John, which wasn't the point. They were actually supposed to go over there and do their own show, but then since John left, they were like, hey, Danny, come over here and help me do the main show too, is how the show basically worked out. But like there was like, what's going on here? We had our comfortable little woobles, and it's all happening in public. What does it mean? And now we're angry at these people because like they broke up our thing. And so one of these two people has to be the good guy, and one of them has to be the bad guy. And so I've watched documentaries. They're like, oh, see, here's the stuff about how like John is just a free-flowing creative, but Arin over here, he's a businessman. He's an evil businessman, and he only cares about the bottom line and profits. And they'll do crazy amounts of projecting to make things up. When I'm like, bro, they're both YouTubers. They're both people that make content with the goal of making the number go big, and then they shape their content towards that. John is making business decisions here the whole time. What do you mean Arin's the businessman and John's not what the fuck are you talking about? Because I'm in the space, and I can see all these documentaries are so fucking stupid. And yes, there's some parasocial element of me being somewhat invested in the Game Grumps stuff on some level, and that's like not avoidable on some level. But I also just can tell objectively when bullshit is being spun, because people are just like picking sides and making drama content for entertainment, but it's about real people's lives, and that's really creepy to do, because there's a very real possibility that in this breakup that maybe someone was the bad guy. But one thing I can promise you from personal experience is that both of them think the other one's the bad guy. That's why they stopped being friends or separated and so on. That's how that works. And like that's what conflict is. If you have a conflict and you're able to talk about it and talk it through and figure it out, then you end up resolving the conflict. And then you still hang out. So when people do split up for any reason that is actually interpersonal drama, that's irreconcilable conflict where they both think the other one's wrong and they're right, generally speaking. That's usually what happens. And so they're both going to be over here and both thinking that they're right. And that's just how that whole shape forms. And so trying to pick a winner and a loser, like a clean, like this person hurt that person for no reason, and that's why they stopped being friends, is an insane, immature, and very 2014 gamer way of interpreting the facts of anything. But like this is... But I do remember they tried to bury the hatchet because John was doing a Star Wars series, and in the very last episode, he defeats Darth Vader and his mask comes off, and that's like the redemption moment of the original Star Wars movies. But under the mask was Arin Hanson. He's there in person. They're doing a skit together, and they do a little dance number, ha ha ha. And it's supposed to be like this little 1 or 2 years later, like people are really weird about the two of us and really obsessed with whether or not we're friends anymore, or if we're mad at each other. And here's us being in a thing together, being friendly, to show that if there was ever anything, the hatchet's probably buried or whatever. Just y'all get over it. Oh my God, move on. Unfortunately, then JonTron got really racist on stream after that, so it wasn't fun to talk about, even if you were invested in those mysteries back then, because that was when he started quoting a bunch of statistics about black people and crime, and was hanging out with Sargon of Akkad. So that got dark and not fun to think about at all, and I haven't watched any JonTron content since then, basically. So he's just dead to me for like a decade. Bye. R.I.P. Bozo. This video's gone so many fucking directions. You can tell that I've been in it this whole time and invested in all these things and so on. But some of Arin's legacy and Game Grumps' legacy since then has been that they play a bunch of Sonic games and they yell at the Sonic games because, frankly, it's easy to yell at a 3D Sonic game because a bunch of stupid, dumb stuff happens. The physics is weird, the character moves fast, a lot of the games are unfinished, broken messes. Even after they started doing this and they were poking fun at the dumb, bad games in the series like Sonic 06, they kept making new, shittier games. Like, Sonic Boom came out during this era, so, like, people act like they're being unfair to Sonic, but, like, Sonic kept not being good ever. All the time. They kept making the most garbage shit. And I know because I was doing it too. I was following the formula. I was like, hey, Aaron, me and Andrew, let's play some Sonic games. And we got so many highlights out of playing those Sonic games because they're such nonsense. Like, so rapidly something completely insane will happen with the physics or whatever. There's a part in Sonic 06 where we jump at the Liger Zoid thing and you're supposed to grind on its tail. And instead, we flew into the skybox, just out into space. And the game just faded to black and we just died. And it's like, that's not even in the realm of possibility of how the systems of this game work. What are you talking about? Why would we jump in the air and do the air dash? That's the little attack you do at everything. Jump at him, grind on the tail. Nope. You went to space and died. There's a part of fucking Sonic Boom where you're in 2.5D platforming, which is when the visuals are 3D, but you're in 2D and all the controls are in 2D. And then the 2D just turned off. So we just started running around in 3D on the 2D level, which is really hard to do because it's curving and the camera's supposed to curve with it. But instead, you could just like jump towards the foreground and air control yourself back to land on the previous floor and just skip the floor because you're controlled in 3D even though it's supposed to be played in 2D. Ass balls shit garbage games, garbage horrible games that should have never been published and are embarrassing and are a permanent blight on this IP. But Sonic has fans, and if we're gonna be honest, furries. A lot of furry Sonic fans, a lot of Tumblr-ish, OC-oriented Sonic fans. A lot of people like Sonic because of the character, because of the cartoon man that they can project a bunch of feelings onto, and then they get to have a million OCs in the universe, because there's so many characters, and they can talk about like Sonic and Tails and Knuckles, and we can reinterpret these characters in all these contexts, and they love it on that level. And you don't really have to necessarily engage with the games that much. It's kind of like FNAF, where people get really, really attached to these cartoon characters in a way that's kind of divorced from the quality or even gameplay of the video games that they're from. I think there's a large audience of FNAF people that like Markiplier and the characters of FNAF that come with each sequel, and that's why every sequel has to give them new characters to be like, more marketing. Now there's a lightning bolt Freddy, and he has a chest cavity that you can hide in. They do that because that's the actual marketing of the thing, like Pokemon. The gameplay is so secondary, as shown by the fact that the game that Glamrock Freddy is from is like the worst one, as far as I can tell. Like, it's, as by all accounts I've heard, it's dog shit. But people love Glamrock Freddy. It doesn't seem to matter that the game's bad. And that's what happens with Sonic. People love Silver, and Silver is from Sonic 06, which is famously unfinished garbage. Like, unredeemable. Obviously, on any level of caring about quality, that game is bad. But covering all these games and making entertaining content, yelling at the dumb things that happen, screaming unavoidable chin move and stuff like that, does lead to a large body of work of you yelling at Sonic. And so if people like Sonic, they hate you. Because if there's anything that I've learned about fandom, it's that if you are the loudest opinion in the fandom, people hate you now. Hello? Hello? What happened? That's exciting. Did my belt die? I don't think so. Let's do a little calibrate. Am I okay? Hello. Are we good? That was weird. All right. I don't know how VR chat works that much, so that was a surprise for me. So I have made an Ad Astra video and a Beastars video. And guess what? There are people in the Ad Astra and Beastars circles that hate me now. My leg is sticking up weird. Do I have to like reset avatar or something? Sorry, everybody. I don't know how this works. Reset avatar. What will that do? Will that help? No, that doesn't help with tracking. It just reset my proportions. Now my belly's gone. Oh no, Ozempic, which is also an Ad Astra meme. But yeah, like I made a critical breakdown of Beastars from a queer perspective and a critical breakdown of a bunch of Ad Astra. Both of them are 3 hour long videos, 1.5 million views ish, and then 500,000 views ish. So they did pretty well. I'll just get closer to the camera. Now you can't tell my legs freaking out. They did well. A lot of people received them well. A lot of people really resonated with the messages of those videos. And a lot of people have literally come up to me at conventions to talk about how I inspired them to come out or to express their furry side or to even come to this convention and go to conventions in general. There are people who are married because of me. And that is an insane thing to think about, but it's provable fact that that's been verified over and over again. Like there's people that know each other because of me. There are people that are married because of me. I've affected people's lives in ways that are never would have been what I predicted when I just made a long breakdown of Lego She and Amicus and stuff. But that's the reality we live in. So people that are on that side of how my stuff was received might be surprised to find out there are other people that fucking hate me. And part of the reason is because you guys are a little annoying, which is that when people talk about stuff and they're just hanging out in Discords and Reddits and just chatting about the thing they like and and what they think about these characters and so on, someone will barge in and link my video in the middle of it again, or they'll quote me like my subjective interpretation of art that was always meant to be that is like the fact or the interpretation of it. The same way that people quote game theory as if game theory solved FNAF or something like that, when it's just him making shit up half the time or doing interpretations. But like, you know, it's supported by ideas, but he could just be wrong about stuff. And it's often just an interpretation of art. It's people doing art wrong sometimes. And there's nothing more annoying than somebody just quoting a YouTuber at you when you're somebody that's like, I'm a primary source. I'm engaging directly with this thing. I'm talking about it right now. And somebody else is, instead of engaging with their own thoughts, is going to just quote a YouTuber at them or act like that YouTuber's right, or even just like use that YouTuber's secondhand impression of the thing as their only source on the thing and then engage with that being their source material. Like it's like this person has read the manga and this person watched a video essay. That's an annoying conversation, especially when you're strangers. With friends, you can get over this, but if you're hanging out in a Discord and having a chat and then somebody else busts in and it's like, well, boring Keith says, and I'm like, oh, shut up. And then I get to be annoyed because I see these conversations happen and they're misquoting me. So they don't even get my video right. They're wrong about what my whole point was in the first place. So I get to be annoyed now because they're not even correctly representing me. So they're making me sound even dumber. Like I can be wrong. And also some of these are just my interpretation. And sometimes it's important to remember that I'm also doing a queer reading of a thing. So like I'm specifically applying a lens. I'm not solving the media and saying this is the one correct take on it. I'm just like, this is my take on it overall. But people quote me at other people incorrectly, so everyone gets to be mad because I sound extra stupid. And then there's a whole group of people that have weird interpretations of my videos, either because they didn't watch them very thoroughly or because, frankly, I'm a communicator and I can fuck up at communicating. Or they view it in bad faith, or they don't want to accept the argument in the first place. So they're not really there to be persuaded. So they just kind of like watch the whole thing in a bad mood and then interpret it strangely. But a lot of them are also just interpreting my stuff, encountering my stuff from people saying it stupidly or rudely or too authoritatively. And that makes you just very annoying. People hate Super Eye Patch Wolf, which might surprise you because Super Eye Patch Wolf seems chill. Check out this guy. He's got a fun accent and he's really hot and he talks about anime and Shenmue and stuff. And there's people that like some of the things that he's criticized and they fucking hate him so so much. And some of it's because he gets things weird and wrong. Like, I watched this Final Fantasy 15 video. I'm like, why is he fixating on the crowds so much? That's a weird thing to talk about this long in the video. But like, creators have their fixations or flaws and so on. But most of it is really just because Super Eye Patch Wolf is popular enough that if he talks about something, he's annoying. It's really annoying that if you play Fear and Hunger, everyone tells you, wow, this game's basically an immersive sim, actually, because they're quoting Super Eye Patch Wolf at you, and that was one of his takes in the video, and I can see what they're doing, and that's annoying. But I'm not mad at Super Eye Patch Wolf. I can disagree with that point in his video, but I can be annoyed at all the people that quote his fucking points like, that's the correct interpretation of this art, is that this one video essay said this, and it made me feel clever. That's the poison. That's the beautiful poison of what's so seductive about video essays, is that they make you feel smart. They give you the tinglies about feeling good about the thing that you encountered, and then you're like, wow, now I feel good. And then that gives you the false confidence that you can talk about the thing that you actually never engaged with the primary source of and made your own interpretations of. So you're going to sound really stupid to people that actually know more about the thing that the video essay has talked about. That doesn't mean the video essay is wrong. It's just you didn't actually engage with the original thing, and also like probably didn't fully internalize the video essay anyway, because the video essay is itself a piece of art that you are interpreting in the real time. So you're going to, even though they're just saying sentences, you will interpret their overall point differently than they originally anticipated in many cases. And it might take a few rewatches to really internalize their overall thesis and point, because we just don't get everything the first time, even when it's being stated outright and is not a metaphor. This is how it goes. I've seen it happen a million times. So yeah, if you're Arin Hanson and you cover Sonic, you get a Sonic hate anti-fandom coming at you. You get people that like Sonic and they hate you. And one of the worst things that probably could have happened is that Arin Hanson became the spokesperson in the United States for Sonic, because he was making what's kind of like some of the most popular Sonic content, basically. So he got directly affiliated with Sega and the Sonic brand, and that did not go over well because he's known for hating Sonic. And Arin has been on record saying, I love Sonic, in the same way that a lot of these people like Sonic. He likes the comic character. He liked way past cool, like the old voice, Chili Dogs, with the dumb fucking voice and the little guy, and he's got a fucking blender for a head, and yeah, cartoon characters. Not surprising. He has got a history with art and animation. He's friends with people that do a lot of Sonic stuff. So like, of course he would like Sonic, even if the games are all like ass. But like, he thought people were in on it. That's the whole thing when I talk about like, because we've been all over the place in this video, but one of the many topics has been like people being in on the idea that you're doing a character or that you're doing a performance, and that this isn't entirely sincere, in that like, it's true when he gets annoyed or he criticizes something, that's not necessarily a thing that he's faking, but he doesn't like hold hatred in his heart for the Sonic franchise and everybody that likes it, but it's interpreted that way. And it's like, oh no, because I've been in this situation so many times where, like with Zero Escape, for example, just fucking tearing into it. But like, I have like a begrudging love for the Zero Escape trilogy, because I had so much fun just playing through them and just being like, what the fuck is this dumbass nonsense? And that was entertaining for me. That was entertainment. The way that Walking Dead is entertaining for me when it's really stupid. It's a really stupid show. The comic's better, show's terrible. A lot of it's terrible. Some of it's really good, but it's just such a mess. In Sonic games, I had such a good time hanging out with my pal on a couch playing Sonic games and just marveling at the shit show that those games are and the number of ways they would surprise me. Like, I've never played the open world one, because open world games are really slow paced and padded and full of filler, and they take way too long. But all these other Sonic games, they were like 10 hours or less. They go, and they're always kind of a mess. So it's just so fucking fun to play them with a friend and just witness it together and talk about it together, because the most nonsense shit will happen every 5 minutes the whole time. It's the pacing of the random crazy shit happening is so fucking entertaining. And so it's great to just sit down in a chair and yell about the shit that's happening in front of you and do it. I fully recommend that you hang out with a friend that has a sense of humor and just play this and play like Sonic 06 or Sonic Boom with them and just hang out and just like, what the fuck is this shit? It's a good time. It's a great afternoon. And when you film it, it gets millions of views because not everyone, a lot of people are having a great time too, enjoying that disbelief about what's happening. They seeing Knuckles jump in the air, pause, unpause, jump in the air, pause, unpause, jump in the air, and just infinitely jump into the sky because they forgot, because they made the pause menu reset the jump timer, the jump counter or whatever, and so you can jump forever. What the fuck are you talking? That's in the video game? That's incredible. That's like finding out in Lords of the Fallen 1, you just go and just spam the shield button to instantly blender anyone to death in the entire game because the shield block bash thing did like no damage but some damage, but you could spam it as fast as you could click. So if you got like a turbo controller, you could just kill anything in the game instantly. That's not supposed to be in the game. Oh fuck. It's great. It's a great time. But then there's all these people that watch this content, and it's not that he's not criticizing Sonic, but they think that he hates it in their hearts, and because they're fans of the thing and they love the cartoon characters and like making OC comics about them and so on, they treat this influencer that is annoying on some level, whether they're in on the joke or not, like the enemy that has to be defeated. And so before long, you're sitting on a couch and you're just like making poopy butthole jokes about the video game, and thousands of people hate you now. Like, I cannot stress how fucking weird that is. And also, that's like the foundation of it all. Because I know there's going to be some people that are really in on the drama, and they're like, well, on this stream, Susie did something, and then Dan, and this, and then the old guys that made I think it's the people that made Happy Smiling Friends, they had a falling out with him, and then they said this, and the fans of this community they outed that guy, or something happened, and it gets really convoluted and messy, and it's often like the people around Arin, even more so than Arin himself, or it's just like people having falling outs and having the unfortunate life of it being public, or people saying unfortunate things on stream that they shouldn't do, and it's not good that they did it. But also like, and I'm afraid to even talk about this because I feel like people are going to project specific instances that I might not even know about and be like, I can't believe you're saying that's good or okay or whatever, when I'm not. I'm saying people are flawed and unfortunately very public. But like, I cannot stress enough that the anti-fandom comes first, and inventing reasons to be mad at people comes next. I talked about this in my Ad Astra video here on this channel, the one called Minors That Play Ad Astra. When you get an anti-fandom that are mad at you for being a big, loud, public person about the thing, for any reason, any level, you can have a positive or negative interpretation, but if it's loud enough, because of the reach of the video, people are going to get irritated at you and be sick of seeing you around. They work backwards from that hatred of being sick at you, and they internalize that. And on some level, we have to accept the fact that on the internet, we hate people for entertainment. Like, we do pick people that we don't like, and it becomes a point of entertainment that we don't like them. Like, I know who fucking Jordan Peterson is, and that's like most of the appeal of Jordan Peterson when you're on the left, is just being sick and tired of this fucker. But at least he's advocating for horrible things for a living. Like, he's transphobic, and not just like incidentally transphobic, but like he made a career out of being transphobic and still sucks all the time. Or Ben Shapiro and so on. But I know on some level that I consume content about these people because it's entertaining to see someone dunk on this piece of shit. But people do that for like gaming YouTubers, which is weirder. And so they obsess over this person and they start Kiwi farming them, basically. Like, they become like, there's a level of drama and obsession about these people where you have like docs about them and you're documenting everything that's ever been bad about them for the last 15 years of them being a public personality, which means there's just always going to be content about them. Sooner or later, you're going to have a falling out with a friend, and one of you, because you always think you're right, one of you is going to be like publicly talking shit about the other one, because not always are both parties mature enough to not say anything. Like, I was really taken aback when two best friends broke up, and their third best friend, because never name your show after how many people there are, Wooly had to just be like, yeah, the best friends aren't friends anymore. Channel's over. I don't know if those two people have ever leaked anything or have ever made the mistake of feeding the drama, or if they've stuck to it all this time. But I remember at the time being struck like, wow, they're not saying anything. They're just going to quietly part and not fuel the nightmare. And it's because they know from multiple instances of how fucked up this gets, and how anything you say you can never take back and will be part of the permanent record. And even if you didn't fully mean it in the moment, or it's just like you saying something to feel good because you think you're right, if you're immature enough to say anything, that gets used against both of you forever. Not just the person you said it against, but you too. And it's on your permanent record because people are fucking weird and they remember this stuff forever. Lindsay Ellis's bizarre cancellation was partly based around people keeping a doc about any vaguely offensive thing that ever happened surrounding her. And when you put it all together, she sounds like a psycho, but half of it is misinterpreted weird shit, and half of it is Kiwi Farms hating leftists, and some of it is just reactionary weirdos making shit up or interpreting things in intentionally fucked up ways and so on. And you get sucked into this. And I'm just warning anyone watching not to get too sucked into hating specific personalities, because in some cases, when they haven't actually done anything egregious, like they're not Andrew Tate human trafficking people, then like they had a falling out with somebody had a crash out on stream at some point, this person said something controversial at some point, it gets weird to obsess over that, because before long you're doxing somebody, or you're facilitating that by sharing the documents tied to that stuff, and there are variations of like just genuinely like stalking and so on. Like I talked about this with a friend of mine that we met up and we're having like just a real long talk over coffee, and we talked about harm and how oftentimes there are people that pick sides. And it could be left or right, or it could be this or that side of a controversy and so on. A lot of Twitter is people feeling that they're on the correct side of a conflict. And then, boom, that means everything they say and do is justified. The dogpiling is justified. The doxing is justified. The harassment is justified because they're right and someone did something wrong. But they almost never stop to think about, okay, what's the grand total scale of what's happening right now at everybody? What's the level of the harassment and dogpiling and shit that's happening right now? How much is being levied at this person? And what did they actually do? Because like, is their current punishment at the hands of the mob complete? Is that harm compared to the thing that they did in the first place? Is this proportional or deserved on that level? And it almost never is, because they almost never actually like hurt someone in a real way. Because there's genuinely horrible acts, and then there's like being wrong on the internet or being messy on the internet, and that is treated with similar levels of intensity in many cases. It gets really weird. I always think back to like when people were dogpiling Lindsay Ellis over ContraPoints. I'm fucking in the weeds at this point. Like there was a chain of custody of like ContraPoints had one line of dialogue in one video essay voiced by Buck Angel. And people don't like Buck Angel because he has bad interpretations of who is and isn't trans. And so that reflects badly on ContraPoints for having them in that video. That's an understandable criticism. But then it became, first of all, that it was weird. The amount of harassment that led to was weird in its own way. But then it became, we hate Lindsay Ellis because Lindsay Ellis, who is not in this video, did not work on this video, but is known for, like, because they're parasocial weirdos, is known for being friends with ContraPoints. We're going to harass Lindsay Ellis now here. We're going to harass Lindsay Ellis. We're going to harass H Bomber Guy. We're going to harass anybody we can that's vaguely related to ContraPoints because of Buck Angel. It's like there's a fucking chain of thing here. And there was people that were literally like, Jenny Nicholson next, because Lindsay Ellis is friends with Jenny Nicholson. And it's like, what the fuck is the chain of guilt by association where you go from Buck Angel to ContraPoints to Lindsay Ellis to Jenny Nicholson? At some point, you're just hunting down women on the internet because you have a parasocial hatred of like certain groups of people, and you're just like chaining them all together. And I remember specifically, unfortunately, being in the closet at the time, and I tried to point out that like, what you're doing right now, don't you think this is harassment? I responded to one person in particular because they were cheering like, keep shouting them down until we get the response we need. And I'm like, the part where you're going to constantly spam them over and over and keep going after them over and over again, that feels like harassment, but you're also calling for other people to do it, which at that point, that feels like organized harassment, like organized parasocial hatred harassment of a specific online person over a thing that you could rightly criticize them for doing. But this is getting weird, right? And once it becomes that level of harassment and organized harassment, like of a trans person, where you're essentially trying to socially isolate them by cutting them off from all of their friends, by severing all those relationships. You're trying to isolate a trans person online as punishment for wrong think on the thing, basically. When like the criticism is valid, but what are we doing? What are we doing right now? Is what we're doing harm? I tried to point this out. I was shadowed down and told to be a better ally, and I'm like, all right. Well, I can't say much more without outing myself, so I guess I just have to shut up and be presumed straight here, for daring to point out that like maybe this behavior online is harmful in a way that is still harm, even if you think you're morally in the right in the conversation, which a lot of the internet is. So much of the stuff is this person sucks for this reason, and sometimes it's for very, very petty reasons. Therefore, anything directed at them is valid and normal, and that's been the ongoing excuse for why certain figures in the space get so much stalkery behavior directed at them, and why so many people are willing to facilitate it, is because once you're annoyed at a guy, you don't really care anymore about whether or not they're being abused by any of this behavior. And it's like, that's wrong on some level, right? And I don't have the answers on this. I'm a rambling mess because I don't have clear answers for any of this stuff, but I've been just living in it and observing it. And I've just seen how weird it is for anyone to have any kind of public thing, watch no matter what version of art you make, from scripted to live to rambly shit like this and so on. Every version of this has so many openings for being misinterpreted or interpreted in bad faith, or being interpreted correctly, but in a way where people act like that's your entire personality and you're like on a campaign to hate certain types of people, when really you're just like, I have a take about Star Trek. I think that episode wasn't very good. You're like, oh, so you hate trans people? You're like, I don't know how it got here, and it's going to take me half an hour to unpack what the thread here was. But now there's a doc about me. It's slightly related to cancel culture, but it's only the part of cancel culture that's not like, because people like this, because cancel culture is a fucking meaningless term on some level. Because people will be like, oh, you think cancel culture is bad, so we shouldn't hold anyone accountable? And it's like, no, bad people exist, and bad things shouldn't happen. I want bad things to stop. But also, we definitely just dogpile people for entertainment. And I think that anyone that's left on Twitter at this point, because of how much people have left Twitter at this point, if you're still on Twitter, you probably have the character flaw of wanting to hate for entertainment. And it's worth acknowledging that about yourself, because if you're doing that and don't know that about yourself, that's way less healthy than doing it on purpose, at least. It's like choosing to watch reality TV because you know it's trash, because you're just a petty little bitch that likes drama. That's valid on some level, but just know it about yourself. Like, I need to know on some level that I'm watching my 75th anti-Ben Shapiro video because I've decided that it's entertaining to watch hating this guy, and he does advocate for people to die, so maybe I don't care if people are mean to him. But like, when it's like we have a similar level of online behavior sometimes directed towards human traffickers that we have towards like media analysts. And that's just like, that's terrifying. And this is one of the things that I've talked about, that we're sort of such a mess in this video, in part because I'm all over the fucking place, because I've thought about this, and actually it was the thesis of like 3 different videos in different ways. I had a video that was titled, You Don't Want to Be a YouTuber. And I just wanted to try to explain all the downsides of being a YouTuber, because people just see millionaires having easy lives, and that's what they see YouTubers as, and they don't see, one, how hard it is to actually get up here, but also how this is all uncharted territory, where in Hollywood you make $1 billion as an actor, and you get like a special house on a hill with gates and armed security, and you're like untouchable in a separate society from everyone else practically, and there's a separation that comes with that fame. But when you're a YouTuber, you live in Sacramento and you go to Rayleigh's and people can just spot you in your jeans. If you even wore jeans today, maybe you went to the store in pajama bottoms and you didn't do your hair, and you're just like a fucking wreck, but like they have cheaper eggs at the store, and you're like, fuck, like you're just a normal fucking person in a lot of these cases that might make this much money or that much money. But like, a lot of YouTubers are just accessible. There are consequences for some of this stuff. Like, I think about like when a fan showed up to Gavin Free's house, and Gavin Free and Meg Turney's house and tried to kill them. Specifically was like, this person was like, thought they were in love with Meg Turney and they wanted to kill Gavin's, I think. And it's unclear what the fuck their plan was. And they had to hide in their house and call the cops and just hide until this guy, as this guy looked around the house looking for them. And you're like, that's fucking terrifying. But that's the level of power we're talking about with YouTubers a lot of the time. They're just like they're just like in a house in suburbia or an apartment, hanging out, doing what I'm doing right now, where I'm just standing shirtless in a room, sweating a lot because I've been talking for way too long, pretending to be a cartoon hyena in a room. We're just really regular people in many cases that have a somewhat strange job and a strange level of scrutiny that no one can really stand up to. Like the only most of the people that have a good reputation to this day are people that went in with ready to fake it from the get-go. They're ready to curate their entire personality and persona from day one to be uncontroversial, but also to very carefully keep themselves out of it and never have a social media presence that isn't carefully thought of as about how will people take this forever. Like there's so much work that goes into it, but a lot of people, there's Twitter on their phone and they're sitting there and they're kind of sad at 2 a.m. and they'll say a dumb thing on Twitter and go to bed. And now the whole internet hates them for 5 years because of that thought they had. That isn't right in many cases, but it's just the instant access of like brain to social media and the way like that's a test that everyone fails at some point. But for a lot of us, it's on our permanent record and it gets insane. It's so like, that's why like, every single public figure has a fucking record, essentially, of why people are mad at them. And some of it's deserved. Shane Dawson's a creep. But there's other people that just like... the Vlog Brothers don't seem to have genuine skeletons in their closet, but people have been finding reasons to be mad at them the whole time. And as far as I can tell, they might be the best ones on the whole website, basically. Like... call me crazy, but they seem to just genuinely be good on chat. I'm just sweaty and tired now. This is a trash video where I've talked for way too much and it doesn't have a clean enough point to be clickable and watchable. God, how fucking... It's been an hour? Oh no. I've done bad. I've got too many thoughts to fucking have a clean thesis here. But yeah, I think that it's normal for people, for any kind of person that has history on this platform to have some level of people hating them. And I think it's worth it to be more conscious and thoughtful about why we think about figures the way that we do and so on. And also whether or not you might have been in a specific context at the time. Like, were you part of a anti-feminist hate movement like Gamergate, and maybe now it's time to reassess Anita Sarkeesian because maybe you've matured as a person, but you haven't thought about Anita Sarkeesian for 12 years and haven't really challenged yourself about why you still hate her, and maybe all the reasons that you hated her were made up because you watched a YouTube channel that made 75 videos a day about her when she only made these many videos, and they were all like dry academic works that are honestly extremely uncontroversial normal stuff, but no one was ready for that criticism yet because Anita Sarkeesian made her videos back when Arin Hanson was making the Sequelitis and Lindsay Ellis was trying to stop being the nostalgia chick, and the concept of video essays barely existed. There are 1 million video essays that say similar stuff to Anita Sarkeesian stuff, and they're meaner about it, and they're longer about it, and they attack stuff that you love even more, technically. But we're used to it now. But Anita existed in a space where people were not ready for that and got crazy amounts of hate from people that were ideologically driven to make sure you didn't think about this stuff. That's my goal with everything I make all the time, just here and on the video essay channel and so on. I'm always like just trying to like more thoughts, please. And it annoys people sometimes because it's often like an infinitely nuanced nightmare thing, because instead of just telling you who's right and wrong and who's good and bad, I'm just like, this shit's really complicated and there's a historical context for a bunch of it, and we should think about that stuff more. So yeah, when we're mad at, so like when we talk about like Arin Hanson, it's really interesting to look at him, look back at this 12-year-old video series. I think it's 12 to 15 years is the span of it, basically. And be like, yeah, I regret my tone and so on. It's interesting to unpack the context of like people hate mongering over the individual clips of this little review from the time, ripping it out of its original context of it being fresh off of like when AVGN and stuff was popular and people used to always talk about video games like that and we didn't even have any video essays, and how he, in his work, was part of the people that led to the content that's really thoughtful now that you like, and led to that. And there's people who make this stuff that were inspired by this stuff, and it's a direct lineage. It's worth recognizing all that and not fucking attacking the human being over and over again for things they said 12 years ago, you know? It's a religious... And I say all this knowing, like, I myself, I have watched the Sequelitis videos so much that I quote them. It's like, when are you gonna run out and fall apart? Skyward Sword has bomb bowling. I kept saying that when I finally played Skyward Sword and I got to the bomb bowling. I'm like, here we go. There's so much goddamn waiting. It's drilled into my brain. But even though it's drilled in my brain, I still then went on to play said games that he was talking about, and I didn't agree with him. I don't like. I have some issues with Ocarina of Time, but overall, the 3D Zeldas are really solid, and I like the 2D Zelda games way less. And in part of that is the level of atmosphere and exploration and pacing that comes from being able to navigate in 3D versus the immediacy and kind of nonchalance of being a little 2D game and everything just kind of being over within a second, and boss fights being immediately over and nothing having hype to it and not having atmospheric immersion in location in quite the same way. I have like the polar opposite opinions of Arin Hanson, and I was planning on doing a takedown on his video of sorts, takedown, very milquetoast disagreement in my Zelda video, where I thought it'd be interesting to look at his video at the time and talk about why my opinion diverges so much from his, well, not being a weird dick, because when people make response videos, they're like, this guy's an asshole and he's stupid. And I'm like, well, here's why I disagree. I actually found that part really interesting when it comes to it. Whenever I do any kind of response, I want to be positive, unless they're Anthony Poe being a homophobe, because I don't want to contribute to all the things that I find dark and upsetting about the internet, which is this insane amount of like toxicity and conflict and like permanent recording of anyone having an opinion about something that gets just a weird level of intensity that isn't proportional to the conversation in the first place. Blah, 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 blah. I guess the moral of the story is you should probably rewatch Tropes versus Women in video games if you haven't since it came out, because you probably don't remember what it was like, and it's very interesting to reassess that. And yeah, it's interesting just to see like how young this whole genre is. Like, we know that YouTube's young-ish, even though it's like 20 years old now. But the genre that I'm trying to make all the time, the video essay, is like a decade old. And now there's a glut of them, and it's losing its cohesion a little bit. And the old guard of people that really popularized it make one video a year, which really doesn't help. But like we forget how young it was and how there was a specific transitionary period there where people did not adapt to the aesthetic of being a left-wing intellectual and, oh, let's do a queer analysis of this thing. They weren't pouring liquids on their faces yet or going, ah, and other tropes that came up through the genre. They were edgy weirdos in a lot of cases. Like Arin Hanson would yell about the poopy buttholes. I keep saying that, but that's like me doing a Rick and Morty quote through the format of AVGN, basically. And yeah, like Red Letter Media, their take was to do it filtered through a serial killer persona. That sounds like a joke, but it's real. And there were really important, influential videos where you'd listen to a serial killer in character review the Phantom Menace. And this was like one of the most important videos in the entire genre. I'm serious. This is real. You can go watch it. The Plinkett review of the Phantom Menace. And you could tell how old it is because it's cut into separate parts because you couldn't make videos that long, and half of it had to be uploaded to like Vimeo or some shit, and it kept getting taken down piece by piece for copyright. Yay! I used to have to watch those videos on their website in a different player because that was back when you would be more likely to find out about videos existing elsewhere outside of YouTube and Twitch and TikTok and so on, and had to watch them on somebody's individual website, and you would refresh the website every day being like, did they make a new one yet? That's how old this shit was. When copyright was so tough on the platform. Anyway, I'm full of thoughts. This was not as clean as the last couple. We'll see how it goes. I'm just vibing, figuring out what this whole thing's supposed to be. The irony will be is if people find reason to get mad at me over these videos, which is kind of inevitable, and it's happened multiple times. But that's part of why I'm speaking from is like I have this experience with versions of this where people work backwards from being annoyed at me for being loud in a particular space and then just kind of trying to come up with reasons to cancel me essentially. And then I just stare at it and I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Okay. Damn. Some people need a hobby. That isn't me. See you guys next time. I need to drink water and sit down.